Good morning, this is Dr. Brad at Your Health Reclaimed, where we discuss all kinds of different aspects about health, root issues, from more of a wellness perspective, so that though we talk about clinical conditions with names, we're not talking about them in the way that most people do, and we're certainly not talking about diagnosing or treating conditions. We're more from a perspective of how do we rebuild wellness, health inside of what people are experiencing. So today we get to continue this dynamic conversation with Fred Hahn, the personal trainer. And the second half, we switch more into the training side. First half, we did a little bit more on the nutritional side. So let's jump in. Right. You know, years ago, I was working with somebody had a whole host of metabolic issues going on, and they didn't want to take responsibility for their own diet. So they got a hold of a nutritionist to help her implement some of the things I directed her and some of the things she was doing on her own for her nutritional needs and weight loss and all that. I didn't see her for quite a while. She came in and she said she'd lost 35 pounds. Her nutritionist was really wanting to know where those 35 pounds came from. Mm-hmm. And I've got a BIA, it's bioimpedance analysis machine. So I said, I can tell you that in a couple of minutes. So we did a BIA. Mm-hmm. All but 2 pounds was lean body tissue, muscle. Only 2 pounds of fat did she burn. And she just got pissed, walked out. I never saw her again. And that's just because that was because she didn't want to manage her own thing. She gave it to somebody else, and they gave her the wrong information.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So obviously what she was eating was keeping the insulin up.
Had to have been. And a lot of people who use Ozempic, they feel like, oh, I'm going to use this drug, and now I can just eat whatever I want. When if you're going to take that drug, if a doctor puts you on it, you have to actually double down on making sure you're getting adequate fatty proteins and resistance training. Like, it's even more important now that you do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you look at carbohydrates in vegetable matter, you got two kinds. You've got starches and you have simple sugars. The effect on insulin from a complex, slowly digesting starch that does not raise your blood sugars hardly at all, like beans are one of those classic ones is that. They got the lowest glycemic index of anything out there, which is how fast your blood sugar will rise. Compare that to something that's full of simple sugars and your insulin levels. What's the difference in those two?
Well, the difference would be, like, for example, let's use your example of beans. Beans are a starchy carbohydrate, but they also have a good amount of protein. Mm-hmm. Whereas, let's say a slice of bread it's almost pure starch. There's very little, if any, protein, and certainly almost no fat in a slice of bread. So for the same amount of calories in beans, your blood sugar is not going to rise nearly as high or nearly as fast. And I think my co-authors, Dr. Zeeds, called it the glycemic load.
Right.
And the bread, on the other hand, for the same amount of calories, is going to skyrocket your blood sugar. I think, like, white potatoes, have a higher glycemic load than table sugar because of the way in which I think that's true.
It's close. When you look at table sugar, that's considered at 100. Some shocking foods out there as far as what their glycemic the glycemic index is. A carrot is 97.
Yeah,
it's almost the same as table sugar. There's a big difference between a raw carrot and one that's cooked to death and soft.
Yeah.
The more you cook it, the higher the sugar load. Potatoes are like that too. The more you cook it, the more conversion of the starch into simple sugars. And that is where the real problem is. You look at something like bread made from grains. If you have a true whole grain, which doesn't happen commercially,
Yeah.
they take the germ out of all of your white all-purpose flour. The
Hmm.
germ is where all the proteins, oils, and
Right.
nutrients are.
Right.
So you take those out, there's nothing to slow down the
Right.
absorption
That's
and
exactly right.
balance anything out. And the more refined that flour is, the faster that sugar climbs. Whereas when you have a whole
Yep.
grain with all the fiber, all the protein, all the oil, it's not the same animal. And that's something that isn't understood very well with the common people that's out there. Big
Yep.
difference between one and the other.
Yeah, there is, and that's why if your first step is to if your goal is to lose body fat, the very first step would be to get rid of those refined the kinds of carbohydrates and sugars that are digested very rapidly. That's the last thing you want because that's going
Hmm.
to raise your insulin. That's going to increase body fat storage and keep the fat clamped in the fat cell. So the very best way to do that is to, if you're going to eat for whatever reason you want to eat carbohydrates, you want to eat the ones that are the most nutrient dense possible, like beans and like not even oatmeal, something like whole groats, which personally I find disgusting. Some people like it. I don't know, whatever. Something that has the mind the pun, the meat to it.
Yeah, yeah. Fiber, protein is more protein and oils to slow down sugar absorption. Fiber will
Yeah,
do it to
yeah,
some
yeah. Does it
extent just by binding things up.
right?
Oats isn't a good example as far as grains go because it's one of the ones that it just seems to jack the blood sugars in a dysregulated sense.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
I'm not sure why that is, but it just seems like there's not a good balance of protein in it. And
yeah,
you have oatmeal, granola, whatever you're talking about, you get a short burst of energy and then you just crash because
yeah.
the blood sugars went up and the insulin crashed it down and you got nothing left.
Yeah, that's why you have these little kids, right? They for breakfast, their well-meaning parent makes them a bowl of cereal. They use low-fat milk because they think fat's bad for your heart, and on top of that, they have sprinkle some bananas on it with a glass of orange juice, two slices of whole wheat toast with jelly on it, and that kid is eating more sugar and carbohydrates for breakfast than he needs in a week. And now the kid
Yeah,
goes to school, he's hyper, he's got all this energy, he's running around, and then like third period comes around and he's like crashed. And then the teacher's like, "Well, your son can't pay attention." And then he goes home and he's like freaked out because he needs more sugar and he can't concentrate on his homework. And everybody's wondering what's wrong with this kid. It's like what's wrong? What you're feeding it.
yeah. It was a while back, at a family show up here. The daughter was about 6 years old, and the school had put the label on her ADHD.
Yeah.
She came in, my office is pretty small. She was in that office for 4 hours, quiet, content, doing schoolwork, coloring, playing with one thing or another, just quiet and
Hmm.
completely content. And I look at the parents and say, there's no way that kid has ADHD. They're
Yeah.
just pumping that child full of toxic sugar
Yeah.
at school.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's
Especially
what,
school lunches, because sugars are the cheapest thing to feed a kid. Macaroni and cheese, pizza, whatever else they give them. It's terrible. We made our daughters. We sent them to school with their lunch.
yeah,
Yeah.
way better. Yeah, I always had to make my own.
Yeah.
Which, you learn how to. I was really sick when I was a young kid, so I started cooking
Yeah.
when I was 5 years old. And I learned that if I ate different than other people in my family, I felt better. So I
Hmm.
had better lunches than probably most people because I took time to make myself feel better.
Right.
So it's interesting because this is one side of that slow burn that I really wondered about on your idea of what you do.
Hmm.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about the slow burn concept for
Hmm.
muscles.
Yeah. Sure.
Why
Well,
don't you just describe that?
so if you just, in your mind's eye, if you imagine the typical person in the gym lifting weights, what do you typically see? You see someone just throwing the weights up in the air and dropping it, throwing the weights up in the air, doing a random amount of, lifting the weight and lowering it once is called a repetition. And they'll do a random amount of repetitions. They'll stop at an arbitrary number and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again, maybe again, and then go to the next exercise. So there are certain principles in exercise physiology that have that are sort of a given at they call it 2x, and those are the ones that are non-oxidative and are only recruited at the very end of a difficult set of an exercise. So if you're doing 10 repetitions of an exercise and you cannot do 11, the very first few repetitions, you're only utilizing the slow twitch fibers. By the time it starts to get difficult, the slow twitch fibers are like the marathon runners. They're still going, and then the intermediate fibers come into play. And only when you get to that point in the set where it's virtually almost impossible to complete the next repetition have you recruited the fast twitch. So now all of the fibers have fatigued in that muscle group.
Interesting. So what you're saying is the fast twitch will actually morph and change into the slow twitch fibers?
No. They're just recruited last. Like if you have
Okay.
an arm, yeah, they're just recruited last. So if you do a set, if you can do 10 repetitions and stop at 5 and then rest and then do another 5 and then rest and then do another 5, and then you're never getting to the higher threshold motor units because you don't need them. But if you get to the higher threshold motor units, in my example, you attempt that 11th repetition, and it doesn't have to be 10. It could be 8 or 9,
Right.
and 9th, whatever, whichever one is the one that you cannot do. That ensures that you've recruited all of the available fibers in that motor pool, and now you don't have to do another set of the same exercise. Now you can just move on to the next exercise. So this way, rather than spend an hour and a half in the gym or having to split your body parts from your chest and triceps, back and biceps, blah, 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 all that kind of nonsense. The slow burn, the way in which we teach it, respects Henneman's size principle. I put you in a machine. I pick a proper resistance. I encourage you to move as slowly and as smoothly as possible, for safety, of course. The faster you move the same weight, the more force you create. That's force equals mass times acceleration. That's Isaac Newton. We don't get to vote. That makes it more dangerous. So,
Yeah.
and you can't argue with that.
Right. It's a difference. Men understand that the slow exercise, like you take a minute to do a full cycle instead of 2 seconds. It changes your hormones and starts to normalize testosterone. We started having women do the same thing, and we noticed it was normalizing their female hormones also. It's got all these normalizing things with it, which is
because resistance training, if you're asking your body to produce more muscle tissue, more mitochondria, in order for your body to do that, virtually every other system of your body has to come up to snuff in order for those changes to occur. So hormonal tone has to be improved. And let's assume the person's eating in a manner that allows for that, right? Because if you're exercising perfectly and you're eating horribly, not much good is going to happen. Right?
Right. Yep.
So, but if you are, let's assume you are, then yes, then virtually every system, there are so many, the cascade of physiological benefits and even psychological benefits that come from even a single bout of resistance training are staggering. No other single form of exercise can produce the amount of benefit that that resistance training can produce. And that's why I say to people, if you like physical activity, you like to run or jog or whatever it is you love to do, Resistance training should be your foundation so that everything else physical that you like to do, you can do better and with less chance of injury. So it's sort of like brushing. Resistance training is like brushing and flossing your teeth so that you can enjoy the food you eat.
Yeah, that really makes sense because
Yeah.
you're conditioning the body. You're not abusing the joints. You're not
Right.
abusing the cartilage. You're not tearing muscle that needs to be rebuilt and all that. So
Right.
you're
Right.
using machines rather than calculate, okay, my last exercise, I did that at 47 pounds for doing my curls, and I achieved it at where I needed to do at 12 reps. I just couldn't do the 13.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I went on to that. So the next time you come in, you're either going to have to raise that a pound
Right.
or
Exactly.
something like that,
Yep.
or go to 14 reps.
Right. And at a certain point, if you keep adding repetitions, the weight starts to become so light that it's no longer really challenging for you. That's why progressing the resistance, what we call, I wrote in my book, micro loading. So like your example of 47 pounds, you do 47 pounds for say 7 repetitions. The next time you come into SlowBurn, we give you 47 pounds again and you get 7 repetitions. The next time you come in, you 47 pounds and you get 11 repetitions. Well, clearly you've adapted. Now, next time we're going to give you 48 or maybe 50.
Right.
And then little by, we ratchet the strength up very slowly, very carefully. Because if you think about it, if you come into the gym twice a week, and there's good research to show that strength training, resistance training, same thing, twice a week is all you need. Because the benefits of exercise, really any exercise, the benefits of exercise are obtained when you are not exercising. They come when you're recovering and resting from the exercise. And I think that's a big mistake that the fitness industry, the American Council on Exercise, American College of Sports Medicine, National Academy of Sports Medicine, all these supposed, expert organizations don't tell. They'll say, oh, you should exercise every day. Well, what's the definition of exercise? You mean, should you be recreationally active every day? Okay, sure, why not? Should you be doing exercise that actually causes a positive tissue adaptation every day? Heck no. Heck no. Twice a week is all you need. And you gotta, and then let the recovery happen, let the adaptation happen, then stimulate again. So if you're only adding a pound, 1 single pound, to whatever exercise you're doing each time you go, that's 2 pounds a week. You're 100 pounds stronger at the end of the year.
Wow.
Just 1 year by adding 1 pound, which in most exercises, if you were doing it and I was instructing you, if I put that pound on and took it off, you wouldn't even feel that I took it on and put it off. You'd have no idea. So the micro loading, so a lot of guys and gals they'll get another extra repetition or two, and they'll put 10 more pounds on. That's too much. And then they'll say, oh, I hit a plateau. You didn't hit a plateau. You put too much weight on it.
It was quite a long time ago. I was working with somebody who was trying to get into Olympic weightlifting, and they had all kinds of food intolerances that they were eating things that the industry said were good, but they were getting wrong sources, and they weren't. Got them off of that and changed into healthier sources of different products. Some of those muscle groups gained like triple their strength in a matter of weeks just because they were fueled right.
Yeah. It makes a big difference. I've had a few times vegans come into the gym, and I would say to them, first of all, plant proteins are not complete proteins. They do not have all of the amino acids, nor are they in their right ratio. So if you can't figure out maybe to eat some eggs or maybe some shellfish, they don't have eyes, it's going to be very difficult, if not virtually impossible, for you to build bone and muscle. You may not be able to do it at all, and that's just a fact.
There's classic ways, like you combine beans and rice, and it's about 1/3 rice to the same quantity of beans to balance that protein out.
Yeah, but even then, if you do that and you're trying to lose body fat, the amount of starch that you need to eat in order to get, like, let's say for example, I put somebody on my bioimpedance machine and it says they have 100 pounds of lean body mass. All of the experts I respect suggest that in order to build lean tissue, bone and muscle, you need to eat about a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So that woman would have to eat 100 grams of protein just to maintain what she has. Not going to build any. So you'd have to eat a little bit more, like 110, like an extra egg or two. That's it, in order to build. But in order for a vegan to achieve that with rice and beans, they're going to get fatter. So it doesn't really work well. It's not the best approach, because the goal is always to either lose, or if you're lean already, maintain your healthy level of body fat and build muscle. But if you try to do that with rice and beans and combinations of that kind, a lean person will build muscle and get fatter. And someone who's over fat might build muscle and not get leaner. So it's not the best approach. It's not the best idea. You know, I'm not talking about the philosophy of it, like hurting animals. I got it.
Right.
So
no,
totally
you're just talking just simple mathematics.
Yeah. What I say to vegans and vegetarians is, listen, here's the truth. Your physiology really doesn't care about your philosophy. You know?
Well said. Yeah. So. Well, we're going to have to close this off. Any closing thoughts that you have before we sign off today?
Well, I mean, I think that what I try to get clients to understand is that while physical activity is great, you know, some people don't like physical activity. They play chess, they play their cello, they read books, and they're really not that physically active. They just choose not to be. But physical activity, running, walking, jogging, yoga, all that stuff, Pilates, whatever, does not replace resistance training. You must find a way, all adults must find a way to incorporate a safe and time-efficient, doesn't have to be the way I do it, but every adult needs to incorporate a safe and time-efficient method of resistance training once or twice a week. That's it. For like 20 minutes. That's it. And that will support and even enhance all of your physical activities. So there's a difference between exercise and recreation. Both are important, but they are two separate and distinct categories.
Wow, that's well said. State what your contact is. We're going to put that in the show notes here.
Sure. The website where you can get all the information, our address, our phone number, everything, is SlowBurnPersonalTraining.com.
Perfect.
And it gives you all the information you need, all our contact information. And so.
All right. We'll put that in the show notes, and we'll sign off. I got another one shortly after this. So thanks for coming on. This was really good.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Brad. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, have an awesome day.
Okay, you too. Bye now.
Okay, bye. So this has been a very dynamic conversation, a really good one. There's been a lot of back and forth with this, a lot of challenging conversation in everything that's been presented. One of the most challenging things is the issue of keeping insulin very, very low. And for anybody who's trying to lose weight, that's critical. All these hyperinflammatory things, that will always keep insulin high because of hormone dysregulation, all these rapidly absorbing foods that convert into sugars is another one. So both those need to be managed to get that. That's huge. And the whole concept of changing the way we exercise to always be striving for that last repetition that we can do. That's where the magic happens. So thanks for listening. We'll leave contact for Fred in the show notes down below. And We'll see you next time. Share this with your friends. Put a review on this so we can get this information out to more people. Thanks. Have an awesome day. Bye.